wait, Mike.
I can't wait.
Are we starting to finish?
Welcome, everybody, to Survive and Advance on the Gruely True Sports Network. I'm your co-host for Survive and Advance, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my co-host, a member of the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame, a member of the 1981 national champion Indiana Hoosiers. Help me welcome to the show, Steve Risley. How you doing, Steve?
Hi, Mike. How you doing today? And, Mike, be careful. This is Friday, so I'm just pretty much worn out with you. So I'm going to be a little feisty today.
And the reason you're usually wore out was proven last night when we picked the game last night on yesterday's show.
Oh,
and
God,
you and Brian Ralph from Fansided both picked Kansas City. And I told you that the Chargers would win the game.
You know, the funny thing is, it was 28-14, and my family and I have a ritual. We eat dinner, and we watch Jeopardy together as a family because it's a, intellectual game. Something you're not very astute on, Mike. They asked us.
Don't even start that, Steve. But we'll bring up the phrase you coined yesterday.
That actually came up. Shakespeare was there again. Shakespeare's on there every time. Anyway, needless to say, we turned the game off, and then my wife and I have multiple guilty pleasures, one of which is Young and the Restless. So we like watching Young and the Restless. We tape it every day. After we do the Jeopardy, we sit and flip through Young and the Restless and stay up for the soap opera. Just for stupid reasons. We're both 60 years old, and it's just fun. And we watch Young and the Restless. And then I get a phone call or a text from Mike, and he's gloating. I'm like, what the hell? And then I see that the Chargers came back and won 29-28. What I heard was one of the great football games. It's like, I lit into my wife. It's like, this is my job. I have to watch this stuff. I can't be watching soap operas and not be watching this.
All right. Now, before our special guest picker today hangs up out of boredom, I'd like to introduce from the National Athletic Association of Private Schools, Peter Coleman. How you doing, Peter?
Hey, doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, we'll see if you're still thanking me after a half hour to 45 minutes of Steve Risley.
Oh, Peter, come on. Don't listen to that crap.
All right. Last night, as I predicted and Steve didn't, the Los Angeles Chargers beat the Kansas City Chiefs 29-28 behind Phillip Rivers, 26 for 38, 313 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. We'll start off with Steve. Steve, what was your take on the game that you didn't watch because you were watching Young and the Restless?
Well, I watched the first half, and Mahone was going nuts and dominating, and the Chiefs looked great. I thought, okay, this is it. I saw the Chargers losing as an opportunity for the Colts, obviously, because the Chargers, I thought, were going to be a wild card. They're going to be the wild card position. Now they may win the damn division. Now they're top. Well, now they probably are in the leading division, are they not, or what?
They're tied. Kansas City is technically in first by a tiebreaker. So the Chiefs would have to lose another game, and the Chargers would have to win out.
I saw that. I said, okay, we're in control of this game. Mahone looks good. Everything's looking good. I got family time here. I need to turn this game off. I can't. I'm watching so much sports, and all went away. Come back. So I'm shocked. But it doesn't surprise me because I just think this is San Diego's year. I think they're a Super Bowl caliber team right now. The way Phillip Rivers is playing, Mike. He's not flashy like Mahone. He's not flashy like Drew Brees, but he's efficient. And he gets the job done, and he's got that team. And sadly, out here in Los Angeles, nobody's going to their games. They're playing in a 30,000-seat arena, StubHub, which is a soccer stadium that holds about 30,000, and they're not selling it out. And that's really sad because this is a very good football team now. They're getting better every week.
All right, so Peter, we'll go to you. What was your take on the game last night, and what is your general consensus about both of these teams?
Well, I wasn't surprised that the Chargers won necessarily. What I was surprised about is it seemed to me like the Kansas City Chiefs, for maybe one of the few times all season long we've seen them kind of seemed like they took their foot off the gas pedal a little bit. They weren't as aggressive as they've been in other games, and to me, it really kind of showed. So I was kind of disappointed from there. As far as both teams, I'm with both you guys. I think both of them are Super Bowl quality teams, but it really seems like things are not going the way for Kansas City, whether it be, the running back situation or whatever it might be. It seems like they're kind of can't be chiefing it here at the end of the season, and see if they're able to kind of turn it around, because obviously they got one of the best players in the league and one of the most dynamic playmakers we've seen in the NFL in a long, long time.
Yeah, and I think the question here has to be Andy Reid, because every year the Chiefs start off hot. Last year I think they started off 5-0, fell apart, and the knock on Andy Reid has been when he gets to playoff games, he plays a lot safer than he plays the first two-thirds of the NFL season, and I think that maybe that's starting to rear its head again.
Yeah, and that's the thing about it is that's got to be what makes you a little bit nervous from last night's game, because it looked like playoff Andy Reid to me. And I mean, you've got Mahomes, the guy's not making mistakes. I mean, he didn't have any interceptions. He still had a pretty good completion percentage, but it just seemed like the play calling wasn't as aggressive. And I think if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, you've got to be aggressive. That's who you are. You're not going to go out and win games 14-0. You're going to go out and win games by scoring the football. So I think it's real important that, maybe he's getting it out of his system, but it sure feels like Andy Reid playoff time.
Yeah. All right, real quick before we start picking the games, I want to remind everybody next week on Monday we'll have fantasy face-offs. Anthony Servino in to talk about all the games from this past weekend. Tuesday will be Brian Ralph from Fansided and the Busting Brackets website, talk college football, or college basketball, sorry about that. And on Wednesday we'll have the Nigerian Nightmare, Christian Okoye, stop by the show. And on Thursday, we'll have Oliver Luck, XFL commissioner, who will come in, talk about the cities, and talk about where the XFL stands right now. First game we're going to talk about Saturday, the Houston Texans at the New York Jets. The Jets will be without Isaiah Crowell and Quincy Enunwa. Who do you like in this one, Peter?
Yeah, I think definitely I'm going to go with the Texans on this one. I think it's going to be, a 2 to 3 touchdown ball game. I just think that there's nothing that I've seen out of the Jets when they go against a playoff team or a team with a winning record, especially, that makes me believe they've got any shot in this game.
Yeah, I agree, Steve. I think this is the Houston Texans. I think they win this game going away. What's your take?
Yeah, I think they're rebounding from last week and the Colts shocking them. I don't think they expected to lose to the Colts down in Houston, and they know their backs are a little bit against the wall. I think they still have a 2-game lead in the AFC South, but I think they need to start taking it seriously. I don't think they're a Super Bowl threat. I think they're probably a 1-game playoff team. I don't think they're consistent enough to play, but the Jets are just befuddled. I mean, they just don't have it together. They're going to have to make some changes on that organization to get things right. They've got a good young quarterback. I love their coach, but I just think he's probably so far on the hot seat. They're in disarray.
All right, next up, Saturday night. This, to me, is an interesting game. The Cleveland Browns, who have played much better since getting rid of Hugh Jackson, will travel to the Denver Broncos. The Broncos blew an opportunity to make the playoffs, or at least their best chance to make the playoffs, by losing last week at San Francisco. Steve, who do you like in this game?
I'm going to tell you what. First off, I love this time of year because you start getting the Saturday night games, and I think the NFL should always have a Saturday night game. I would rather have a Saturday night game than a Monday night game, truthfully, if it was me. And I'm grateful this time of year they always start this right around now of having Saturday games. I'm going with the Browns. I think the Browns are a hot football team right now. I think Baker Mayfield is the real deal. I think his team is playing with reckless abandon. They don't care. They know they're not going to make playoffs most likely, and I think they're just playing carefree football, and they're a talented team. I mean, Jarvis Landry is a great receiver. Baker Mayfield is definitely leading candidate for Rookie of the Year, I think. Offensive Rookie of the Year. I know you think the Colts lineman, Quentin Nelson.
I'll take Quentin Nelson over anybody.
Yeah, well, and maybe so, and that may be so. I'm certainly not going to punk one of my Colts players, but I think the Broncos are fragile. I think they're a very fragile football team. So I like the Browns in this game. I'm rooting for the Browns to win this game. I want them to.
All right, Peter, my question on here is, when I look at this game, my first inclination is to take the Browns too, But the thing that worries me is the Broncos' pass rush against that Browns offensive line.
Right. Yeah, and the thing about it is I've looked at that back and forth as well. You're talking about Bradley Chubb and Von Miller and how good they've been rushing the quarterback. But Baker Mayfield's been pretty good at avoiding getting sacked. I think I read somewhere he's only had 1 sack in the last 3 or 4 games.
Well,
so that's pretty important. The thing to me is will they be smart enough to give the ball to Nick Chubb and let him neutralize? I think Nick Chubb is going to end up one of the best running backs in the NFL without a doubt. I can tell you this. I covered and have covered SEC sports for 10 years. And prior to Nick Chubb's injury, Nick Chubb was the second best running back I'd seen come through the SEC. In fact, the one best running back I've seen come through the SEC during that time was Todd Gurley, and him and Gurley were on the same team, and he was playing a little better than Gurley.
You there, Peter?
Peter?
I lose you guys?
Yeah, go ahead.
Get you back.
Where'd I lose you at?
Todd Gurley.
Oh,
I
yeah.
I think Nick Saban cut you off when you started talking about somebody other than an Alabama running back.
Yeah, that's the thing. But anyway, I just say that if you give a strong dose of Nick Chubb and Mayfield's ability to get away from the pass rush, I'm going to take the Browns in a very, very, very slim margin.
Yeah, I'm going to take Cleveland too, just because I love Baker Mayfield. My question to you, since I know you're a Georgia fan, what happens to Kirby Smart at the end of big games?
Well, Kirby Smart to me isn't so smart. I think he's a great recruiter, but I question a lot of his moves. Let me give you one more. Last year against Alabama, we've got the ball with 1:30 left in the game, and we got a chance to go down and kick a field goal and win the game, hopefully. Instead, we've got Nick Chubb and Sony Michel, two of the most dynamic, statistically duo in college football history running the ball. We've got them on the sidelines, and we've got a freshman in the game. We go 3 and out and punt, and you know how that game goes in overtime. So I'm not a big fan of his game calling. I think he does a great job recruiting, but man, him and Chaney got a long way to go in the game management issues.
All right, next up, we've got the Arizona Cardinals will travel to Atlanta to play the Falcons. This is a matchup that I don't think anybody wants to see, but we do have one Hall of Fame matchup of Cardinals cornerback Patrick Peterson going up against the Falcons wide receiver Julio Jones. I'm going to take the Falcons here just because they got Jones and Ryan, Peter.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think it's just a matter of they're just not as bad as the Cardinals and got enough playmakers on offense to win this game.
All right, Steve.
I would agree with Peter. The Falcons are kind of like I feel about the Giants. You just keep waiting for them to win. You keep saying this team is too good to keep losing, and you don't understand why they keep losing. It's like the Falcons are a good football team. I mean, they were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and it's like I got to pick the Falcons because this is the week they're going to break out and beat the Falcons again. And that they just don't do it. And that's kind of how the Giants are until now. The Giants all of a sudden started winning. So I'm going to go with the Falcons again, only because they're playing at home, and I think they're finally going to have a good football game. This team is too good to have this many bad games in a row. So I'm going with the Falcons.
All right, next up, we've got the Oakland Raiders traveling
to
the... Huh?
Wait, who did you pick?
I thought I already picked it, but I'm going with the Falcons. All right. I didn't even want to justify the game. It's so bad. The Oakland Raiders. The Oakland Raiders at the Cincinnati Bengals, Steve.
This is 2 games in a row that nobody gives a damn about, Mike. What the hell?
Hey.
All right.
I'm hoping the Bengals lose so we can get Marvin Lewis fired, if that could ever possibly happen.
I can't. You know what? This is a toss-up to me because the Raiders had a good game. I don't know if Gruden has any coaching ability, truthfully. I don't know. They played good the last week. They finally looked like a football team. I don't know if that's a one-off, happening event for them or if that's a trend that's going to that team. The Bengals are just continuing to flail. They just continue to spiral downward. And I think you're going to get your wish that Lewis is finally going to be gone if that team wants to represent itself. So, I'm going to just make a pick and go with the Raiders just because somehow I think that the Raiders are going to pull this out somehow. The Bengals are just going to puke on themselves one more time.
All right.
I know it's your team, and I don't want to bust your team. I hate that.
You've taken way too much time to pick this game. This should not take 5 minutes to talk about the Oakland Raiders and the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm going to take the Bengals just for one simple reason, and that's Joe Mixon. I think he's going to be the best player on the field, and if the Bengals have enough sense to hand him the ball 20 or 25 times, I think that's how they win the game. But I think it's a complete toss-up between two teams that have pretty much given up. Peter?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Bengals just because I think that the Raiders have so many issues right now on the offensive line that Geno Atkins is going to have another Georgia Bulldog, if you will, but Geno Atkins is going to have a big, big day at the office.
All right, next up.
I'll tell you what, Mike, the best thing about the Bengals, the best thing about the Bengals are the Bengals.
No,
they have some of the hottest cheerleaders in the NFL.
Yeah. Well, that's
the little striped bikinis and their white boots.
Number one, it's not true, and number two, there should be no cheerleaders in any football. But
if you're going to have them, the Bengals
especially adult women cheering in NFL games, I find that.
They get paid $25 in two.
They make $50.
So.
They make $50 a game.
$50.
But still, we're not going to get into that because then Steve will be put on probation like he was last time he started talking about cheerleaders. All right, next up.
That was you.
It wasn't me. Next up, the Miami Dolphins at the Minnesota Vikings, which is a huge game with big playoff ramifications. Peter, who do you like in this one?
Well, I'm gonna. That's a hard one to go with, but I'm just going to go with the Dolphins in this game. I think that they're going to have just enough in the end to win this game, but I don't have a whole lot of confidence in it, but I'm going to take the Dolphins by a small margin.
Yeah, because this is a game with playoff ramifications where I don't think either team is that good. And I think either one of them, or if both of them make the playoffs, they're going to be smacked right away and be sent right back home. I'm going to go with the Vikings just because they're at home. Plus, Kirk Cousins usually plays great after he pukes all over himself on national TV. Steve.
I agree with you entirely. This is a team with two unpredictable quarterbacks in Tannehill and Kirk Cousins. You just don't know which is going to show up on either team. And whichever of the two quarterbacks shows up is going to win that game. Just because they're playing at home, I'm going to go with the Vikings. But it's only because they're playing in Minnesota, not in Miami. If it was Miami, I'd be picking Tannehill. But yeah, I'm going to go with the slight edge to the Vikings, but it's another one of those toss-up games. But it is a huge game.
All right.
And I want the Dolphins out of it anyway. It eliminates them from the Colts pathway to try and get into the playoffs. So.
All right, next up, speaking of your Colts, the Colts are favorites in a Week 16 matchup with the Dallas Cowboys, which also has huge playoff ramifications. Steve, I'll let you start off by picking the Colts.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to bet the Colts. I'm going to pick the Colts, but I tell you what, I think Dallas is one of the hottest teams in the NFL right now. They've got it cranking. I think that Amari Cooper was a huge move for that football team. Somehow he just changed the culture in the locker room of that team. I don't know what the chemistry is, but that when they acquired him, and it may be the best expense of a giveaway first-round draft pick to draft a player back into your team that I've ever seen done. I mean, I'm sure that you're going to point out there are greater ones, no doubt, but that was a great move on the Cowboys' part. I'm surprised we're the favorite right now because Dallas is riding, a 5-game winning streak? And they're playing good football. They've won some important games. And, they've forged themselves into the lead in the NFC East. I don't know the Colts can pull it off. I mean, luck has to be on target for them to have a chance, I think. Because I think depth-wise, Dallas' front four is strong. They're pass rush on our Colts line. I don't know how strong our line's going to be. Costanzo's still kind of whacked out. I don't know if Brian Kelly's coming back. If I was betting and not being a loyal Colts fan, I would probably take the points of the Cowboys.
All right, so who are you picking, Steve?
The Colts.
Okay. Peter?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Cowboys. It's hard to go against the Colts because, like I said, it seems like forever since we've seen Andrew Luck really pressured in any game. They've done such a great job of protecting them, but I think Dallas is playing too good right now, and I think they keep that rhythm going.
Yeah. this game's a toss-up to me just because of one thing. When I look at this, the Cowboys, they've got Ezekiel Elliott, they got Amari Cooper. Dak Prescott, he's a good quarterback. I don't think he's anywhere near Andrew Luck. The thing that concerns me here is this is the Dallas Cowboys. And how many times have we seen this over the last 15 or 20 years where all of a sudden they look like this juggernaut and then they go out and fall down and basically all their fans are jumping off the bandwagon at the same time. I'm going to go with the Colts.
Well, that's what I'm banking on. That's what I'm banking on happening is that Cowboys are going to have to puke on themselves, I think, for the Colts really. I don't think the Colts are as good a football team as the Cowboys. I really
They're
don't.
not.
Top
They're
to
not.
Bottom, I don't think they're as good.
They're not. I'm going to take the Colts just because I don't believe in Jason Garrett. And I just think at some point in the next few weeks, this is all going to come falling down because it always does. Next up, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will go to Baltimore to battle the Ravens. Ravens still have a legit shot to win the AFC North, especially with the Steelers having to play the Patriots this week and the Ravens only being a half game back. Since they've got something more to play for, I'm going to go with the Ravens, Peter, but my question to you is this. Would you play Lamar Jackson or Joe Flacco if Joe Flacco was healthy?
I'd go with Flacco. But, no, it's really hard to say because of those type of things. If you're not in the locker room, you don't know what the players are thinking. And I think you got to kind of go that way a lot of times. But this Bucs offense is so bad. You know, just 14 points last week against the Saints. I think the Ravens win this game.
Yeah, I agree. Steve?
Running away.
You want to go the other way and pick the Buccaneers?
Yeah, you know, well, if you go by last week, and the Buccaneers looked pretty good last week. You know,
for half a game.
Best game I've seen them. What?
For a half a game, they looked all right.
For half a game, right. But they showed, you know, Jameis Winston showed some flashes of brilliance. I think the Ravens are going the opposite direction. I think until they get Flacco back, they keep sliding slowly down.
They've won 3 out of 4 games.
What?
They've won 3 out of 4 games, and that one loss was an overtime to the Kansas City Chiefs.
I know their performance has not been as dominant as it was earlier in the year. I'm going to take the Buccaneers in an upset here. I just, again, this is indicated to me in terms of my Colts getting in the playoffs. So I'm going with karma this week.
All right. So you see why this is so easy to win this pick'em, right, Peter?
Yeah.
Of course, last week, me and Ed Biles were saying the same thing because he picked like 2 or 3 random games, like the Colts to win, and then they all happened, and me and Ed lost to Steve. Next up, the Detroit Lions.
Out, partner. That's very kind of you. That's unusual for you to be, you know, kind-hearted to me. Thank you.
Well, it's really unusual for you to be right and me to be wrong, so I figured I'd go ahead and bring it up.
I agree. I agree entirely. I'm 1 for 175.
All right, next up, we have Peter's Detroit Lions. Is it all right to tell everybody that, like that in public?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
It's something I've lived with.
At the Buffalo Bills, Peter.
Yeah, it's hopefully, like I said, you know, as I said off the air, I'm very frustrated with my Lions this year for trading Golden Tate away for basically nothing. I think Matthew Stafford over his career has done more with less than anybody, but I think that the Bills are just bad enough that Detroit will win this game.
All right, so Peter is going with Detroit. And you know, the bad thing is this. What was it, 2 years ago? Stafford was on pace to be the MVP. He hurts his finger, and that team fell apart. I think people forget he was having an MVP season, and I think when he got hurt, they would have been either the first or second seed in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the Detroit way.
Yeah, well, I'm a Bengals fan, and 3 years ago or 4 years ago, Andy Dalton had the same thing happen to him during an MVP season.
Let me say this though. I talk about when I was a kid growing up. I'll never forget Barry Sanders leaving us and how much I despised Barry Sanders as he sent his dad back to tell us he didn't want to play no more. But after being a grown adult now and kind of seeing the way we operate, I can't blame him the least bit. I wouldn't blame Matthew Stafford if he got up and left today.
Yeah, I know. It's a shame. And my team is pretty much the same way. In this game, I'm going to go with the Bills because I really like how hard they play. I think they might have the worst roster in the NFL, but they've somehow figured out a way to win some games. I'm not convinced that, Allen is their quarterback in the future, but I think there's a chance it could be. I'm taking Buffalo because they're the home team. I'm figuring the weather will be bad. And Steve, what do you think?
I think Detroit's another one of those teams. It's a underachieving, good football team. They just can't seem to – something glitches on them every time, or they run against a hot team or something. But I don't know there's many games that Detroit hasn't been in at the end of the game. And they've been in the hunt to win the game. They haven't won them. But I'm going to go with Detroit. Detroit's not only breakout teams to me like Atlanta and the Giants. You keep waiting for them to win because you know they should be winning, and they just aren't. I think they've got the personnel. They've got a good quarterback. I like their coach. He's looks like kind of a crazy guy and kind of fun. And I'm going to just stick with Detroit in this game.
All right, next up, we have one of the longest running rivalry in the NFL. The Green Bay Packers will travel to Soldier Field to play the Chicago Bears. The Bears can clinch the NFC North, I think, if they win this game, if they haven't already clinched it. Bears-Packers, Steve.
I think the Bears are in the Super Bowl.
Huh?
I think the Bears are in the Super Bowl.
Wait a second. Steve, you cannot say that because of one simple fact. Week 1 of this season, I don't even remember who we had on with us, and I made a comment that I thought the Bears would win the NFC North. I never said they'd go to the Super Bowl because I don't think they can with Mitch Trubisky. When I said that, you basically called me a fool.
Yeah. Mike, that's the problem with you Midwestern people. You're so staunch in your Bible Belt, Corn Belt world that you don't ever adopt change. Out here on the coast, we look at things in a liberal way, and we see things like, hey, I made a mistake. I'm choosing differently now. I'm going with the flow. Donald Trump's an idiot. Let's just admit it, okay? Let's get that on the table right now, okay? I voted for him, and now I think he's an idiot, so I'm changing my vote. No big deal. I think the Bears are a solid football team. They are very well coached. They probably have one of the best coaches in the NFL right now, in Nagy. And I think that it's a team that's kind of playing together. There's no pressure on any one player on that team. Pressure's on the whole team. And they're playing classic Bears football. I think the Packers are reeling. They lost their coach. They're in disarray. They got an idiot interim coach who couldn't do anything in Miami. And I think Aaron Rodgers is down to a Brett Favre mentality now where he's going to be a big play Ray. Aaron Rodgers is now going to have great games, no longer great seasons. You're going to see Aaron Rodgers on a Monday night throw for 500 yards, then you're going to see him puke on himself like he did last week. And I'm going with the Bears. Bears are a solid football team, Mike.
What's up with all the puking on themselves today? I've known you for like a year and a half, and I don't think I've ever heard you use that phrase before. Now, yesterday,
I know.
Yesterday, Peter,
Jeopardy.
everything was
Jeopardy lesson. There was an answer. What is puke on yourself?
Everything yesterday, Peter, was vaunted. The vaunted offense, the vaunted defense, and now today everybody's puking all over themselves.
Word of the day.
Talking about the Heisman Trophy Award being presented by some damn Russian, who's the curator of the American Award for College Football Player of the Year. And they talk about the vaunted players who have won this. It's like I got vaunted stuck in my head, so I used it 1,000 times yesterday, no doubt.
All right, real quick before he continues, he's going to continue.
That involve puking yourself on Jeopardy, so it's in my head.
All right, I'm going to go with the Bears. I think they're the better team. It would not surprise me, though, Peter, if the Packers got this win, but I'm going to go with the Bears.
Yeah, I think Packers kind of look like the old Packers a little bit last week with the new coach, but I think that you got the wrong time to have a beat-up offensive line when you're going to get to Chicago Bears defense. I think the Bears win a defensive slugfest.
All right, next up, we've got a game that this may be the worst game of the week. The Washington Redskins at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Peter, you're new. I'll let you pick this game first.
Yeah, well, for personal reasons, I always pick against the Redskins. But so I'm going to go ahead and pick the Jaguars. But I think the winner. I mean, the total combined score is probably under. It's definitely under 20 points.
All right, Steve.
I would pick the Jaguars just because they're playing in Jacksonville. That's to me, that's the only difference between these two dismal teams. I mean, it's talking about two teams that just started off with high expectations and leading the division, one leading the division, and then the Jaguars, we were talking about them being a possible Super Bowl team at the beginning of the year, and the only thing they did this year was beat my Colts 6-0. Idiots.
Oh, yeah, by the way,
My
Peter,
Colts.
Steve
Idiots.
Risley made a prediction that the Jackson Jaguars were going to win the Super Bowl at the start of the year.
No, I didn't say win. I said
yeah,
they had a
you
chance
did.
to be in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
No, I would never pick the Jaguars to win
All
the
right.
Super Bowl. Never.
Well,
in
Were
my
y'all
life.
sponsored? Were y'all sponsored by like Coolers Beer or something that show, or you got a head
Matt
start on
Ryan
the
2020.
sponsorship?
I'm
Or,
blowing smoke right now. I never said. I said they were a Super Bowl contending team.
Okay,
but
well, the show is out. You go to Spotify, iHeartRadio, you can pull it up and you can listen to Steve's Super Bowl
Bortles is such a
predictions.
puke of a quarterback
All right,
in the NFL.
I'm going with I'm going with the Jaguars also because I think outside of quarterback, I think they're a talented team.
Yeah, I agree.
The Tennessee Titans at the New York Giants next up. I'll start this off. I think the Giants are going to win this game. I think Saquon Barkley is the best running back in football. There, I said it. And I think Eli Manning is not done. I think his problem is he didn't have an offensive line the last 4 or 5 years. I think the Giants' offensive line has played much better over the last month. So I'm going with Eli and the Giants, Peter.
yeah, despite the wrong prognosis and knowing that Todd Gurley is the best running back in the
But
NFL.
he's not. Saquon Barkley is. You're biased. I'm not. See, I'm an Indiana
look,
fan,
he should have won.
so I don't even
Gurley
have a
should have won the
college
MVP last year, and this year, I mean, his ability to, he's just amazing what he can do, running, passing. Receiving, just amazing running back. Can put it in the end zone like no other. Barkley's good, but he's no Todd Gurley.
Okay.
I almost want to pick against the Giants just for saying that, but I think I think that the running game, I do agree with you, the running game of the Giants is going to overcome. I think people are forgetting that Derrick Henry's still Derrick Henry with slow feet the first 3 or 4 yards, and that he only doubled his total yards last week. He hadn't been good the rest of the year, so I'm going to take the Giants in a close one.
I would like to bring up the fact that against the Chicago Bears, if you compare them, I think Saquon Barkley played a little bit better against the Giants than Todd Gurley did.
Well, I mean, we can always pick one game out of the.
I know,
one game
and when it benefits your argument, that's what you do, Peter.
One game out of the sky, and we forget that how good Gurley has been. How many straight games was it with a touchdown at the end there? One of the longest in recent memory.
He does play with a lot more talented team too, which helps.
Well, people weren't saying that 2 years ago, though, and they weren't saying it when the Rams were a joke and nobody wanted the quarterback and he was a bust and everything else.
That was
Jeff Fisher is. I'll have to tell you the last time I saw Jeff Fisher's story off the air, but it's.
Was he laying down drunk in an alley somewhere?
he was. I don't know if I should say this on live. So, but anyhow, I used to.
Nobody's listening. Just me, you, and the.
I used to be a marketing director at a. I used to be a marketing director at a Chevrolet dealership in Franklin, Tennessee, and he still has a house out there. And he went out there obviously afterwards. And he came in drunk as a skunk. Somebody made a mistake and gave him he had put in his vehicle and made a mistake and giving him one of our rental cars, track units as they call it, and he called 5 minutes later from the liquor store. He couldn't figure out how to crank the car, and so we just got him an Uber home. But yeah, it's been a tough ride for Old Fish.
Yeah, Mr. Risley, Giants, Titans.
Franklin, Tennessee. That's where all the damn country music stars live. That's where a lot of them. Who's Faith and Tim McGraw? They live out there. I got friends who live in Franklin, Tennessee. That's hoity-toity land right there, man.
Yeah, you got Jessica Biel and her husband, and about every country singer in the world. Basically, the rich people of Nashville have gone there. Is what it is.
Yeah, that idiot quarterback that played in Miami last year, Cutler. They live out there. I know about Franklin, Tennessee. All the country music stars live out there. The Giants are an enigma to me. They do this every year, Mike. They flounder through the first half of the season, and then somehow around the 8th 9th or 10th week of the season, they start developing into a good football team. And they're in that process again right now. They're playing good football. Manning is playing well. Saquon Barkley, I can't fight your argument too strongly about him being one of the two. He's definitely one of the two best running backs in the game right now. And you got to maybe throw Ezekiel Elliott in there too with Gurley. But those three are so – you wouldn't go wrong with any one of the three. Obviously, youth would give Saquon the advantage, but I like the Giants in this game, and I like it for reasons too that I kind of need the Titans to lose a game here, so there's so much pressure on the last game of the year when the Colts play the Titans, which may eventually end up being for a playoff spot. Maybe, so I'm going to go with the Giants.
All right, next up, we got Seattle Seahawks, who are red hot behind quarterback Russell Wilson, traveling to San Francisco to play the 49ers, who upset the Broncos last week. Any chance of an upset this week, Steve?
No, I don't think Seahawks lose until the playoffs, or I don't think they lose regular season the rest of the year.
All right, Peter?
It's a good football team.
No, I agree. I think the Seahawks are going to win this one, and I think it may be a little bit, like I said, I think the spread's 4 or 5 points. I think they'll cover the spread, but they won't blow them out.
All right, I'm going to take the Seahawks also. I hope they blow them out because I'm a Bengals fan. I hate the 49ers just because of 1981 and 1988, which were the only two chances my team was ever going to get to win a Super Bowl, too. Next up, the New England Patriots will travel to Pittsburgh to battle the Steelers. The Steelers are in a much more desperate situation than the Patriots are. Peter, who you like in this one?
Yeah, I know they're in a more desperate situation, but I also think there's something about Belichick and kind of embarrassed how last week's game ended, and I think that he'll have his guys focused and ready, and the Patriots will win this game.
Yeah, I'm taking the Patriots because I think to beat the Patriots, you need to be able to run the ball. And Pittsburgh, with James Conner out, Le'Veon Bell never showing up. Last week averaged 2 yards per carry. That's not going to cut it against New England. I like the Patriots here, Steve.
Yeah, I like Patriots too. I think they're going to rebound from last year. I agree with Peter that Belichick's not good. That's not sitting well with him or Brady. What happened last week, and to lose that way and have it celebrated all week long is the miracle in Miami. And, that doesn't sit well with those guys. And that's it's a good football team. I think Pittsburgh's done.
All right, next up. Wow.
Roethlisberger's living on fumes.
All right, their problem's not Roethlisberger. Next up, the Philadelphia Eagles will travel to L.A. to battle the Rams. Nick Foles now takes over as the quarterback. Peter, does this mean that he can pull something off like he did last year?
Yeah, it would if it wasn't for Todd Gurley. All right, Todd Gurley. And you just, that's it. So, no, it does, doesn't it? It looks a lot like last year with the timing and him coming in. But I still think, no disrespect to Foles, but I still think that was just kind of a fluke miracle run. And I think that the Rams are too good, and especially with Todd Gurley, best running back in the NFL. And, so I got the Rams winning this one.
Well, I think Saquon Barkley is the best running back in the NFL, and I'm still going to pick the Rams
really?
Too. Yeah, it makes for good radio when me and Steve disagree over things. So I think this, if you gave me one running back to put on my team right now, I would take Barkley just because he's 3 or 4 years younger, if that makes sense. I think the guys...
Yeah, it does, but he's not Todd Gurley.
I think they're very comparable, and I also don't think the Detroit Lions are your favorite football team. I think Todd Gurley is your favorite football team.
Well, it makes it easy to cheer for other. No, I cheer for Detroit, and then I follow the Georgia players, and that's kind of how it goes. But Todd Gurley, I'll say this: he's one of the most special human beings you'll ever meet. Just a great young man too.
Well, there's not enough guys that have that said about them to play anymore. I'm going with the Rams also. I expect the Eagles to give them a game, but I think Todd Gurley is going to go off because last week he got shut down, and it's kind of like Belichick. I don't think it's going to happen 2 weeks in a row, Steve.
No, you know what? I ran into Todd Gurley at Gelson's the other day, which is a Jewish supermarket out here in California, and he took the last melon. I mean, I was trying to get a cantaloupe, and the son of a bug grabbed it, and he's got hands bigger than me. He took the last melon, and I couldn't get a melon for my family, so the hell with Todd Gurley. What's he doing in a Jewish supermarket anyway? What am I doing in a Jewish supermarket anyway?
What are you even talking about, Steve?
I think the Rams. I think Eagles are toast. I think that and I didn't really run into Todd Gurley in a Jewish supermarket.
I don't think anybody believed you did.
Okay, good. I just want to get that out there. I don't need a Twitter feed telling me that.
Because the thing is this: if Steve would have met Todd Gurley, then what he would have done is he would immediately pulled out his championship ring and asked Todd Gurley if he had a championship ring.
Does he have long braids, long-haired braids? That's all. I kind of saw him sticking out of the helmet last time I watched him play. So I don't know what he looks like. So it's whatever. The Rams are a good football team. This is a no-brainer. Eagles are spiraling. They're out of control. They're not the team they were last year.
Next up, Monday Night Football, the New Orleans Saints will travel to Carolina to battle the Panthers. The Saints, if they win out, will be the number 1 seed in the NFC playoffs. I'm taking the Saints here because you know my feelings. I think Cam Newton's a front runner. Things are going poorly. I think they'll keep going poorly for him, Peter.
Yeah, it's weird for me to say, but I think the Saints, I never thought I'd say this, but I think the Saints defense will be different in this game, and I just like the Saints winning by a touchdown.
All right, Steve?
I think Saints run away with this game. I ditto you, Mike. I mean, I think that you're looking at the MVP of the league this year. I think Saints defense is strong. I think Cam Newton's a front runner, and I think his game's going to try to be all about Cam. He's, it's on national TV. He'll make it about himself, and he won't play team football again. And, yeah, Saints are the best team in the NFL right now.
All right. Peter Coleman, as we introduced you, you get the NAAPS High School All-American games coming up, volleyball and football. You want to explain to us what NAAPS is and how you came – were you the one that basically came up with the idea? Are you the founder of this?
Well, back in January of this year, there were 3.5. There was one that was closing down, but there was 4 altogether that came together and formed one athletic association for private schools. So there were smaller ones all through. I was with one, but we were able to get everybody together and kind of form something and pretty special, I think. And just in the last 3 months, we picked up over 100 schools in the last 3 months to join the association. We're up over 500, and I think we'll be up to over 1,000 within a couple of years.
Steve?
Yeah?
Well, I thought you were supposed to ask a question after I ask a question.
Oh, I am?
Steve's a rookie. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, are you? Well, we had this conversation off air, so I'm kind of feel like I'm repeating myself.
Well, you can repeat it, so it's good.
I'm from the Department of Redundancy Department, so yeah, here we go. You guys, are you self-funded? I mean, how do you fund? Because you obviously don't have school money backing what you do. How do you guys raise funds, and how do you get equipment? How do you get referees? How do you fund yourselves to be as competitive? Because I know Mike's team was dominant. Every time we had to hear it, they do a show, and Mike's team won again. They're killing everybody, and we had to hear it. And he put a good football team together with self-funding. How do you guys operate that way?
Yeah, so we've been very fortunate. We've got a lot of great sponsors, and we find a way to include sponsors any way possible. So what we have is we have multiple sports. I'll give football, for example. In football, we've got 7 different divisions.
Peter,
yep.
Duke has good sponsors, too.
At least in basketball.
Kansas has good sponsors.
Absolutely. So what we do is, we've got, like I said, 7 different divisions for, say, football. Each one of those have their own national rankings, their own national champions. We just had the Patriot Bowl in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, between Thomas Hayward Academy out of South Carolina, Tug Academy out of Alabama. But so what we do is we use the sponsors give us and generously give us a lot of finances to be able to support these things that we do. So whether it be national rankings, bowl games, playoffs, All-American games, whatever it might be, we really owe a great debt of gratitude to the sponsors that help us and allow us to do that go all in and believe in what we're doing. And so really 90+% of our funding comes from our sponsorships.
Well, and who are some of your sponsors? I mean, is it the shoe companies? Do they dump in put money into your efforts? And I mean, what kind of people sponsor you, or what kind of sponsors do you look for to go get?
Yeah, we try to find things that are associated with what we do and will really be beneficial to them. So, for instance, Flick Press is a big one for us. They do a lot of animated video work and things of that nature. So they're a sponsorship of ours, and our schools use a lot of them for their animated work. And we have a lot of colleges that go in with us, and the colleges will advertise with us whether it be on the website or direct link to our schools, and they come in. So at our All-American game, we'll have over a dozen different colleges that will obviously we'll have a lot of scouts there, but we'll have a lot of college representatives there that are there just to have a chance to reach out to our athletes about the educational aspect of their school. So we try to find sponsors that really fit what we do, because the key to that is long-term success and having those relationships for a long time. We don't want sponsorships that just, don't get me wrong. I mean, we'll take them as long as they're ethical, but we don't want sponsorships that just come in and you're gone in a week. So we use them. Signature Championship Rings is a big sponsor of ours. Championship Productions, which is a huge online resource for coaches, is a big sponsor of ours. Blue Frame Technology, they're huge into live streaming, production truck, things of that nature. So we have a lot of sponsors that really just go in with what our clients are going to be, our schools, our students, our athletes are going to be most likely to take advantage of.
All right. How does your program intermix with like state high school athletic associations or parochial school athletic associations? How do you guys fit into that mold? I mean, do they cooperate with you and let you play games with each other? Or, I know Mike was talking about traveling great distances to try and find games to play. I think, Mike, you guys went to West Virginia one time to play or something, didn't you?
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, you went over to Eastern Ohio or somewhere.
Oh yeah, we usually have to go at least 3 hours.
You came up and played.
They go down to Florida
in Indianapolis. Yeah.
We've been to Georgia this year. We've been to Indianapolis 2 or 3 times. We were outside of Columbus 3 or 4 times. So a lot of mileage was put on our cars.
Yeah. But how much play does the state high school athletic association work with you guys and try to incorporate you into their schedules?
The state associations the private school state associations are really, really great. We have great relationships with them. We have to go in and get special. So for instance, a bowl game like we had this past weekend in Gatlinburg, Atauga Academy is part of the AISA, Alabama Independent School Association. Thomas Hayward's part of the SCISA, South Carolina Independent School Association. So we got to go in with them and get special waivers because they have rules about when teams can play after bowl games and things of that nature. Private schools work really well with us. Public schools, it's kind of pick your poison. Depends which association it is. A lot of them, I give it, the state of Tennessee, for instance, for us to have, somebody in one of our All-American games that isn't a senior, for them, they want us to pay them, $2,000 to allow to get permission to do that, just to have one, to give. So it makes it real difficult because, we have to pay $2,000 for an athlete in the state of Tennessee to play an All-American game. It seems kind of crazy, but that's the way it is with some of them. Some of them it's easy. Some of them are, really they care about the kids and the exposure and obviously, but there are others that make it really difficult. So as far as, trying to help the kid get exposure. So we do whatever we can within the rules and just kind of take it from there. But each state, like I said, it's its own framework. You got to build relationships with each person.
Again, and I'm a little naive here because I know you and Mike are both involved in this. Are the largest portion of your group homeschool teams, or is that just a part of it, or how?
No,
what's the makeup?
No, it's So I mean, we've got a big mixture from homeschool teams all the way up to your big large schools. Give you a couple schools that are members of our association. IMG out of Florida, which a lot of people know of. They've got probably 15 of the top 100 players in the country there. Oaks Christian out of California, Mater Dei out of California. So much bigger schools, part of our association. But we divide those. We try to divide each of our sports into classifications so that, the school that has 40 kids in the high school, they have their own All-American team. They have their own national champions. They have their own individual awards, because we try to divide it, just because an NAIA school wins a national championship. No, they wouldn't beat a Division I school, but they're the national champions of their level. So we try to divide those out and make it where from the largest to the smallest school, your kid can get exposure and get to experience that kind of environment.
How many sports do you guys cover? I mean, we know football, volleyball. I think I looked on the website. You got baseball, basketball, golf, softball. Yeah,
we're getting ready to by next year. We're adding even more. We're adding. We've got soccer now. We added this year, but lacrosse. A lot of different sports. So we'll be up to about 15 sports by the end of or by the start of next year.
Now, Steve's going to ask you if you're going to ask NASCAR, add NASCAR, because Steve loves NASCAR.
Well, I think NASCAR would be a great vocation. I mean, come on, give me a break. Well, you're in Tennessee. Gatlinburg. Yeah, well, we're in Dollywood, and that right out there on I-40, and that Gatlinburg.
Well, the good news,
Dollywood is.
The good news is we work with one of the things we do is we work with the cities themselves, and when we put our events at certain venues. But one of the exciting things about Gatlinburg is they got the NASCAR go-kart place down there. So when you come down to Gatlinburg, they've got like probably 12, 13. One of the go-kart tracks you got to have a license to race on. But they've got about 12, 13.
And there is no place in the world better than Bristol, Tennessee, the last great Coliseum. You go there.
There you go.
Football games there. That's the greatest racetrack. Half mile is banging and buffing, rubbing is racing. Bristol, you sleep in your car because there's no hotels within 100 miles. I've been to Bristol a couple times, and it's like watching a NASCAR race in a football stadium is what it is. And it's in the middle of nowhere. It's in the middle of nowhere.
No doubt.
One barbecue joint, but you talk about a great experience to go to Tennessee and go to Bristol and watch a NASCAR race. What kind of do you guys have academic standards? I mean, I'm sure you're as all about academics. You're probably much above what the NCAA says about being student athletes, because they aren't really about student athletes. They're about how can I make a buck off these student athletes. Do you guys have academic standards that you have to the teams have to adhere to?
Well, what we do have is we have to allow the state associations that they're in kind of dictate those. We do try to do our best to promote and sponsorship those through our academic All-American team, things of nature. One thing that I think that we do really well, though, is we have a couple people on staff, and their job is to help kids make sure they're taking the right courses, that they're qualified, that they're meeting all the standards for the NCAA and for recruiting. So we offer any of the kids that want to call in and have us to help them look at their transcripts and make sure, because a lot of schools, especially smaller private schools or homeschool athletes, may not be aware of some of the things that some of the landmines that the NCAA puts out there. So we try to help kids navigate through that, and it didn't cost a kid anything. We don't charge them a single penny to help them out with that.
Would you put a thumb on Goodpaster? Because I'm scared to death because he's homeschooling his kids, and I'm really afraid.
My kids can all count to 10.
They can all count to 10.
Hey, let me tell you something about
homeschool kids are smarter than public school kids.
I tell you, as a former coach, the team I like playing the least was any type of homeschool team, because one, it was a lot of times it was their social network, so they were real passionate about it, right? A lot of times that was their biggest interaction they were going to have with other students their age, because they were homeschooled. Two, they're normally really, really smart and really, really disciplined. And so homeschool athletics are some of the toughest teams you can play in football and basketball for sure.
Well, yeah, Goodpaster's got a practice set up as soon as the show's over. He's taking his team out.
Wait a second. Now, this is what people don't understand. If we play a game on Friday night, we practice Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. We don't even practice Wednesday. We don't get near to practice time that a lot of these regular school, as they call it, teams get. So we're practicing one less practice.
You take the combine out, you plow down the cornfield,
No.
You guys go out there in Lawrenceburg and you practice all night long.
We don't practice in Lawrenceburg. See, you have no clue what you're talking about. It's just like normal, Steve. You have no clue.
The good thing is he gets to define what practice is, so if there's no broken bones, he didn't have to call it practice.
Yeah, they get the preacher's bus and paint it different because after the Crusades, they paint the bus school colors and use that to haul their.
We don't have a bus. All of our kids get to the game by their parents individually. We went to play in the National Homeschool Federation's national championship with everybody driving themselves down.
Yep, and he's telling the truth about that. They're definitely, while you could look and see some of the benefits, are definitely some of the drawbacks. You've got to be really committed. You got to be really committed.
Yeah,
I'll tell you.
Mike, who called me in a panic and said they lost their car keys and were stuck in Atlanta. They couldn't find their car keys.
Yeah, we're in Atlanta, Peter, and we're the day of the national championship game. We're playing Christ Prep, and I get up in the morning, and I start looking for my car keys, and I can't find them. And my car is only like 2 years old, so it's one of those magic car keys that cost like $5 billion to replace.
Oh, they do.
I'm looking all over for this. And finally, we're doing a walkthrough in a parking lot, day of the game, watch our film. I'm still looking for my keys. I even signed up for AAA just so they would come. And they came, and the guy's there, and he's like, well, I could get you a new key, but it's going to cost about $750. And at that time, my cell phone rings, and it's my wife. And she's like, oh, I found the key. It was, there was an ice basket or whatever you call it with a lid that was sitting next to where my computer was. And the lid was off over top of the keys. And me, my sons, my wife, we looked for like 3 hours and never once picked that up and found it. But that is what we remember most about that day.
And I get a call. It's like, well, what the hell do you want me to do, Mike? Drive down there?
I didn't call you. You were calling and bugging me. And then I texted you back and said I couldn't find my keys. And then you wanted me to write an article explaining the keys to the game.
To validate what Mike said is I've been married 35 years to my beautiful wife. She's a sweetheart. And we have got her. I got her a new car, too. It's got one of those push-button starts now. You just kind of put the key somewhere in the car. You have to be within a certain range. You hit the start button. You don't put the key in the ignition anymore. And she's like, I can't find I've lost the car keys. I lost the car keys. And I'm like, well, what the hell? I said, they're not here. How did you get where you are? She goes, well, the keys could have been, I think I left them at home. And I'm like, okay, well, let me look where we normally keep our keys. No, they're not here. And she goes, well, wait a minute. And it says, oh, the car started. But I don't know where the keys are. I'm like, Tia, look in your damn purse. Because the key has to be in there. The car won't start if you're more than like 100 feet away, 20 feet away from the car. So there they are. God,
I've done that before, though. I drove an hour away. I started the car, got out, set the key down inside, left, went an hour away, and it was still running. But once I stopped it, it wouldn't start back, and I got.
I thought she does.
I've been there.
All right.
Well, how do you expect me to get my son's down in Manhattan Beach making a movie, and you're stuck at Petco getting dog food. Walk home. Blonde. See, blonde. My wife's blonde, so blonde is not a hair color. It's a state of mind. I said all along. Blonde is not a hair color. It's a state of mind. It's just.
All right.
We got off tangent.
So we usually get off tangent. Let's talk a little bit about when your NAAPS High School All-American football game is. I guess January the 5th.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. January 5th in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. We've got 2 All-American games. We've got the 8-man All-American game and 11-man All-American game. And what a lot of people don't realize about one of the reasons we've added the 8-man game this year, it's a sport that is growing exponentially. I think I read a couple of weeks ago that the state of Michigan is going to have 70-plus high schools that are playing 8-man next year. It's really a sport that's growing exponentially just because it's, they basically take the guards out, but it's financially, it's a little easier. It's, smaller schools are able to operate. So we have our 8-man game and then our 11-man game. And we're excited about both. I think there's going to be a great, obviously 11-man game is going to have a lot more recognizable talent, but the 8-man game will have a lot of unseen talent as well.
Peter, is 8-man, is it like flag football? Is it non-contact? Or 7-on-7, is it non-contact? Or?
No, it's basically you pull basically you pull the guards out. The football field is not as wide. The idea is that you're covering about the same amount of space. I think the team that's really at a disadvantage is the secondary. They have to cover a little bit more space. But
how big is
it's
the field
same,
in 8-man football, Peter?
Well, that's a good question. I think it's 10 yards. 10 yards. The width is 10 yards shorter, and then I think some people play on an 80-yard field, but most of them play on a 100-yard field. But I think it's 10 yards shorter width-wise in the 11-man field.
Yeah, because I know
here's
that's
a good question.
huge in like Texas and Oklahoma for years, hasn't it?
I know Texas plays 6-man football.
Yeah, that's right.
Texas plays 6-man football. Now, 8-man football has been around in especially southern states for a long time. I mean, I remember back when I was in high school in the late 90s, it was, a lot of 8-man teams were out there then. But it's always been big in, I think, Oklahoma. I think you're right, Nebraska. I remember Rashawn Salah. I remember the Heisman Trophy winner. He was one of the first.
Colorado.
He was one of the first 8-man players that first one to win the Heisman, or the only one probably to win the Heisman. But it's been around a while, but it's growing exponentially because the cost to run a football team, and then also, numbers are just down across the country at many schools, and it's not as easy. I'll give you an example. There's a team out of Kansas in Wichita Christian, and, they've just, we're getting 1-win, 2-win seasons, and just didn't have the depth to play. Well, they have a public school league there for 8-man, so they went to the public school league for 8-man, and this year, and they were 6-3, and so just it helps close some of that depth. And basically, what you're doing is you're taking away 2 of the guards, and depending what offense, either a receiver or a back. But it's an intriguing game. Like I said, it's football. You still got to run, tackle, pass, catch, all the same thing. But it's something I think you're going to see. If you're looking at high school, something you're going to see grow far greater. Like I said, Michigan's going to have 70 schools next year. Alabama, Tennessee already have a lot of schools. Mississippi, South Carolina, all those states already have a lot of them. So it's going to see something grow just because of the cost and the depth issues that a lot of schools are facing.
Here's a question for both you, Mike, you and Peter, both you guys, because you're both football geniuses. Well, Peter, you're a football genius. I don't want to expound upon that too far. I'll lose my credibility again if I call Mike a football genius. But is there a push or movement towards 7-on-7 more because of the CTE issues and the concussion concerns, and everybody's worried about the contact in high school football and youth football? Is there a movement or push toward going to a more of a 7-on-7, no pads game like that?
Yeah, I'm located in the South, and so there's definitely no push there. I think that it's kind of I think a lot of people they're trying to regulate practices more. They're trying to regulate. I think we'll see a regulation of special teams come in a little bit more. We've already seen a little bit of it in this area with the fair catches and placement of the ball, things of that nature. But I think it's just going to be more regulations on when they're getting hit and how they're getting hit. I don't think, especially in the South, you'll ever see a movement away from pads.
Yeah, I think Steve asked that question because he's from Livermore, California, and I think that's probably what they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
California has a lot of great 8-man teams out there, by the way.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I think,
they really do.
The 7-on-7, I think you'll see a push more for that for kids instead of Pee Wee football, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think I don't think that's a bad thing. Listen, I didn't start playing football till my sophomore year. I was always a basketball player, and I ended up getting a scholarship to Jacksonville State University to play football. I didn't play to my sophomore year.
You and Artis
Gilmore.
Kind of like,
what's that?
You and Artis Gilmore.
There you go. So I just don't think I don't think that for me, I've got 2 boys and each his own, but it's kind of like a running back in college. I mean, you only get so many hits you can take. So those guys normally leave early for the draft. I think if we could learn the skill set in a little bit earlier age, and then toward middle school start working on the other aspects of it, would be better. But that's just my opinion. Who knows?
The thing that I've noticed is this: over the last 3 years on this show, or on our NFL Legends show, and the Boxing Legends show, I've interviewed probably 500 or 600 former All-Pros, Hall of Famers, Hall of Fame boxers, guys like George Foreman. You had players like Jerry Kramer. And the thing that stands out to me is this. The guys that, for the most part, have issues are guys that played before the age of 12 or 13. The guys that didn't start until they were in high school don't seem to have the issues that the guys that played when they were younger did.
Yeah. And I think there's some truth. I mean, you can only take so many hits before it starts to have an effect. I don't know what the answer for that is. Obviously, there's smarter people out there that'll figure it out. But for my sons in particular, I don't want them. I don't want them starting tackle till at least upper middle school.
Yeah. Well, Steve knows his son, and his favorite story to tell us about his son's getting concussions. Because Steve's
my son was a scout team quarterback for the high school, and Randy Gregory was a senior, who's now a defensive lineman for the Cowboys, and he jacked my son to the next moon. And my son was running the scout team offense, and Ross said he got hit. He said he remembers flying, and he remembers landing. Then he walked off the field for one play and came back. He said, I don't remember the rest of the week.
Yeah.
He came back in after one play. He sat out one play. It's like, and of course they once again they ripped on Randy Gregory. What are you doing hitting the quarterback? You see the red shirt on us? Oh, I thought the scout quarterbacks were okay to hit, Coach.
All right, so let's get back to your All-Star game, January the 5th in Gatlinburg. Is it available for people to see online or on TV somewhere?
Yeah. So we've got, we're hoping to launch it out tomorrow. We've got a new Roku channel just for the National Athletic Association of Private Schools. It is going to be, we're finalizing. It's going to be on FS1 on Dish Network, and so they'll be able to see it online on our website as well. So there'll be a variety of ways they can see it, whether it be TV, Roku, or online.
All right, and what's your website?
For a nominal fee, Mike and I would be willing to come and broadcast a game for you.
I'm already going to be there, Steve.
Oh, are you? Well,
yeah. And he's probably already got broadcasters since the game's a few weeks away.
Yeah. Well, I can, look, for the right price, I can fire them. But
no, see, we don't pay you, Peter. You would pay us.
You pay us.
Yeah. Let me rephrase that. If it costs me less than this group costs me, I'll be glad to fire them.
Because Steve's got a national championship ring.
Yeah, I heard that in the introduction. That's pretty impressive.
So, yeah, he could bring the ring
pretty impressive.
And let all the kids see it.
And that 25 cents will get you a phone call anywhere in Greater Gatlinburg.
I don't think you can use a payphone anymore anywhere, can you?
Probably not.
I was trying to think if there was one.
What's your website for the NAAPS? I know, what is it, private school?
Yeah, privateschoolsports.com. www.privateschoolsports.com.
And are you guys on Twitter?
We are. We are on there as the NAAPS.
Okay. Steve, do you have any more questions?
No. It's very enlightening, and I applaud you for making the effort to do it and giving kids another option to do things. I think the more that intelligent minds can get control of things and not let big marketing machines get control of things, I think it always ends up better for the student athletes. And I think, that's what impresses me most about it, about what you're doing, what you're trying to get done, and trying to create an alternate pathway for people that want to take a different approach to it. And I applaud you for the work you're doing. It's interesting conversation.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys, and I really appreciate you guys having me on.
All right, appreciate you being on, Peter. Maybe we'll have you on after the game, and you can tell us what happened.
All right.
Because either that or Steve Risley could call and tell you what happened. He can do it in about an hour and a half.
I guarantee you Goodpaster's kids will get flagged within the first quarter. I guarantee you that.
Yeah.
That's already a known quantity.
There's probably a decent shot of that, Peter. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Chip off the old block.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
All right, guys. Remember, the NAAPS High School All-American game, January 5th on Roku and FS1 on Dish Network. Make sure you check out Peter Coleman there. He's doing great work with the NAAPS All-American game. Next Wednesday, remember, the Nigerian Nightmare, Christian Okoye, will be our guest. On Thursday, Oliver Luck, XFL Commissioner, will be here. Remember, you can hear all of our shows on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Peter Coleman, Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.